Joining us is a gentleman, well, this is the second time on The Observer. Let me say a pleasant good evening to attorney at law and PNM member, Mr. Ronald Boynes.
Good evening, Mikee K. It's my pleasure to be here, and good evening, of course, to your listenership.
Yeah, and I hope you could apologize last week. I know you got tied up, so many were saying, where is he, where is he? But you got tied up, but you are here this evening.
Yes, again, it's my pleasure to be here.
Ronald, you always come across to me, my perception, of course, you as that of a fighter. I mean, you've never just sat on the sidelines. There are times when things take place and you jump into the mix and say, listen, it's unfair, even if you have to take a scolding or a beating for it. Looking on at what's taking place now at the party that you're a member of, what comes to mind? What's your takeaway?
Well, Mikey, of course, we know in the public domain is the fact that, well, one, Dr. Rowley indicated in Parliament, well, of course, not for the first time, that he had intentions of perhaps stepping down, and that he really made his swan song, as it were. And so that let off a fierce round of activities, I would say. And then, of course, this coincided with the fact that the 51st annual conference was due to be held on November 17th. That was postponed, and that a general council meeting was held last week, Saturday. So it set out a round of events. And, of course, as we know and we are hearing and has been reported in the press, there's now basically a battle for the leadership of our party between Stuart Young, who ostensibly appears to be the handpicked successor by the political leader, although I'll come to that in a while, because the PNM constitution doesn't really speak to a handpicked successor by the outgoing political leader or prime minister. And of course, we're hearing certain names in the public domain. So, again, Mikey, I have belonged to this party since 1997. The party has a constitution. I mean, I have, as you know, I have participated in the elections process on 3 previous occasions. I have had my concerns and, of course, deep issues with the conduct of some of these elections and matters which are prescribed in the Constitution not being followed to the letter. So the Arsenal is my take. One, I'll be certainly keeping a very keen eye to ensure that the Constitution of this party is followed. Secondly, that the interests of the people, because ultimately the party is responsible for its members, is responsible for the wider population of Trinidad and Tobago, whose welfare is enshrined in our Constitution, so to ensure that these things are observed in their favor. So my takeaway, Mike, as I said, it will be to apply scrutiny and to speak out appropriately on all that is happening.
And I understand that. You basically, what you're doing is you are going to stand here and ensure that there's accountability and transparency, which is most important, and that the rules are followed. Let me give you the perspective of that of someone who is not in the PNM, on the outside looking in. And that perception is the fact that, the party, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm sure many people who are viewing might be thinking that, the party is set up in a way that if the leader says it is that, so be it. If Dr. Rowley says he wants Mr. Young to be his successor, then so be it. No dog bark, nobody makes any sort of challenge. That's the way it's going to be. Now, here's where it gets a little more complex, as the case may be. You are talking about a party, again, on the outside looking in. It has always been a party that has given this impression that it is for the Afro-Trinbagonian, the man on the ground, the people in many of these areas that are deemed to be hot spots. Now, talking about Mr. Young, you're hearing PNM people weighing in and saying, trying to take the party into the hands of the elite, trying to take the party into the hands of the economic puppeteers, trying to take the party into the hands of the people who are the financiers and what have you. Now, that's somewhat strange, because is this something that the party has always fought against? Because again, looking in, it has always been perceived as already being in the hands of the elite and always being in the hands of the financial puppeteers. If I'm wrong, please correct me, and please try to expand on that perception.
All right, so Mike, you have raised two main points. The first one is that the what I call the overarching power of the leader. So the leader says X is X. I mean, I beg to differ. And the thing about it is that in the PNM, of course, there is one man, one vote that has been put forward as the operating tool of how we select our leaders. Now, the fact is now that at this point, Dr. Rowley is political leader, and that office expires next year. Which really coincide with the general election. But of course, the signal was that he would advance that and will bring it forward, and he will either, based on what we were hearing in the public domain, either step down and so on, but it step down, and then it has given a clear signal as to who he may prefer. But the fact is, Mikey, that if a political leader steps down, this is a matter that goes to the annual convention, special convention of the party. And at that convention, there's one man, one vote. Now, as to whether the leader would exercise overarching power, or whether the population of the PNM, because certainly as a population, as a party members, if there is any threat, to my mind, to your well-being, or if you figure that this individual, whoever presents themselves, is the proper person to represent their interests and the party and the country by extension, well, so be it. So in terms of the leader exercising that power, well, I mean, clearly, you see this, the other, well, you have set me thinking here, and I really want, as somebody who has gone through the procedures of the party, 3 elections, as it were, the issue is that the party members, the power is in their hand, and it is in their interest, and it is also in the interest of the person who is presenting themselves to make a case, right, to represent. And if at the end of the day, what we see, may the best person win, right? So that is one issue. The second issue that you have raised is the perception and of one that whether the party has been serving the interests of the people, or it is in the hands of the elite. Mine, as you're aware, I offered myself for service to this party in the capacity of political leader 2 years ago. And the reason I did that was that my perception was that the party was not properly representing the aspiration of the members, so those persons who it was both primarily to assist and by extension, of course, the nation of Trinidad and Tobago. In other words, that we were not realizing our true potential as the people. And ultimately, because the PNM is such a pivotal part of the national community and so on, ultimately the nation of Trinidad and Tobago. So I offered myself. This was not accepted, apart from as I said, there were certain things in the election process which I would not delve into. But to come back to the point, this is what we call the economists and the developmental theorists call an inflection point, where whoever, in my view, is presenting themselves to represent the party has to come forward with a developmental agenda. Dr. Rowley has signaled that he is the leadership of the past, that he has done his best, we will take him at his word, and that you now have to go forward and ultimately select. He has signaled someone who is comfortable with, but that can't be the criteria or criterion for selecting a leader, right? So as I said, the party is now at an inflection point.
I understand.
And yeah, it comes down now to each and every individual member. And bear in mind that of the 150,000 members of the party, is less than 10,000 who voted the last election, the last party election, to elect the executive, including the political leader. less than 10,000 over 3 days. And when the ballot boxes disappeared, and it took several days to complete the ballot. So this is a pivotal moment, and the perspective is not going to be a walk in the park for anybody, and it should not be.
Are you saying then, Ronald, that if Dr. Rowley as political leader is saying that he wants to see something listen, he has done all that he can, but there's going to be a vision moving forward, and that vision itself needs to be highlighted and illustrated by someone who believes that they have all rights to sit in that seat. In other words, what is Mr. Young's vision? And how does it fit into the future of the party?
Yeah, well, precisely, Mikey, precisely. I was listening to one philosopher, and he was quoting a Buddhist proverb. He said the greatest organizations meet their people's needs and solve their people's problems. So we want to know, how is the prospective leaders, all who have offered themselves, how are they going to meet their people's needs and solve their problems? And our problems are many and varied, especially among the beasts that form the core and the heart of the PNM.
And that's quite understandable. And no, that's quite understandable. I understand quite well where you're coming from. But Dr. Rowley is not that type of leader. You're talking about someone who is conscious enough as a statesman to understand that, listen, if I am making my exit, I want to ensure that the vision is a shared vision, that everyone is on board. Now, what we're seeing here, and correct me if I'm wrong, is someone who is manipulating the process by saying, listen, I have selected people around me who are going to endorse this, and that's all I need. I don't need to hear from the constituencies. I don't need to hear from the rank and file. I don't need to hear from the people who have been out there saying that they are going to be PNM until they die. Whatever input they have is not one that is relevant at this time. Am I fair by making that assessment?
Well, Michael, in all fairness, I don't like to get ahead of myself, right? What the signal clearly, and let's face it, is that Dr. Rowley favors Mr. Young to succeed him. To any right-thinking person, that is what appears before us. But, and this is where communication, education, and putting forward your view as to the proper role of this party, where we have fallen short in the past. What is responsible for the conditions of our community, especially those communities that have supported the PNM for all this time? What is responsible for the state of crime across the country that really is a detriment to business confidence, to community growth, to family life? I am a country where you am from Sandy Grande, that's my home, and people tell me, well, boys, we don't even like to go in the gallery. Now, galleries are a big thing in Grande, out there, living, taking some afternoon breeze, and chatting with your neighbor pass. Right, so when we have lost all these things are an integral part of who we are as a community and as a people. This has to be, so nobody could be, in my view, and I've spoken to several people across the membership of the party, whoever puts forward himself, notwithstanding what the leader has said, has to make a case to the people of the membership of the party.
Let me ask you this. And I agree with you on that. You have to have something to offer, and at least tell us what you're going to offer in any organization. Now, let me ask you this. Do you think that this will be happening under Mr. Manning?
Well, sorry, just to repeat the question. So what will be happening? With something
like this, as far as saying, listen, this is the person I want to succeed me. That's it.
No.
This is my Gary Sobers. Would something like that be happening under Mr. Manning?
No, well, of course, each leader has his style, but Mr. Manning, first of all, I believe that he scrupulously follows the Constitution. Secondly, as you'd be aware, Mikey, he studiously avoided even appointing a sitting member of parliament to act in his absence because he didn't want to create the appearance of favoritism among that he was favoring anyone. Although, let me make this point, because when I ran for the post of political leader, I made the point that we should really have a fixed position of deputy prime minister, deputy political leader, deputy prime minister, because it leaves the guessing game out of it. Whatever mechanism the party wants to arrive at within its internal processes to select that individual, who I had suggested should be under the age of 50, so if the party is in power and he's there with the current prime minister, who should be a two-term limit prime minister, that he will get a grounding in the statecraft on that country. So this really shouldn't be machinations and a level of secrecy. I was interested to learn in Singapore, as you know, since their independence, since 1956, when they were basically a colony of Great Britain, and so coming forward, they have had 3 prime ministers: Lee Kuan Yew, then one called Gok Chung, and then Lee Kuan Yew's son. And the 4th prime minister was only appointed in May. And the process to appoint him was a vote among his colleagues, a secret ballot, right? And to elect him. The indication is that this is a man who has been a minister for the last 20 years. The indication is that we will determine this guy's strength. We understand how he works, how he thinks. He will provide the appropriate leadership that has taken Singapore, an area smaller than the size of Sangre Grande, into one of the top 20 economies in the world. Right? And so they take their leadership issues quite seriously, and we should as well. It shouldn't be by subterfuge, it shouldn't be by who I like. Right? We need to, as you use the word, transparency, and we need to democratically, and in all openness and fairness, appoint this person who shall lead the PNM and by extension lead Trinidad and Tobago to see its best days.
Finally, I need to ask you, looking on at everything, something that you've given a good portion of your life to, so many people weighing in about the fear of what could happen and what direction the party can go. What is your biggest fear looking on at what's happening?
My biggest fear would be inaction. I think each party member needs to recognize the power of their voice and their vote, and to weigh in on this issue. Each party member. This is not. I mean, we have serious issues to confront. Trinidad is a beautiful and blessed place, a cosmopolitan nation. People from all over the world have created a melting pot and have dedicated their lives to what we Mother Trinidad and Tobago. So that each party member of the PNM, we're currently in power, and we have been so for the majority of the period since independence coming forward. This is a pivotal moment. So my fear is in action, but my hope as well as is that, and in fact my confidence is that we will seize this moment, because it is Obama who said, former President of the United States, he said, never waste a crisis. So even if we consider it to be a crisis, which I do not consider it to be a crisis, but this is a moment that will wake us up to the power and the giant within each one of us. And we put forward to the party and by extension Trinidad and Tobago the best candidate that could lead us forward, and bring forward this cohere, this great nation, unite this great nation of Trinidad and Tobago into a greater nation, this potentially great nation into a truly great nation. So I see there's real opportunities here, Mike.
All right. Any closing comments? Go right ahead.
Well, Mikey, thank you for the opportunity, and feel free to reach out to me at any time. I will be speaking, right, and I will be, in a sense, trying to lead by example. I've been very fortunate at the education I've had. This country has a blessed country to me, and I want to give back. I've been, as you know, I'm a senior law businessman. I have served 7 years as chairman of the Sangre Grande Regional Corporation, and I have something to say, and I will be saying it in the best interest of the PNM party. party and certainly in the best interest of our nation. I will be speaking.
All right. Thank you so much, Ronald Boynes. Thank you so much, attorney at law and PNM member. Thank you again for joining us here on The Observer.
Thank you, Mikee K. Have a good night.